Okay, so I'm here with Elke Dua, and I hope I've pronounced that.
Yeah.
Probably haven't.
Yeah.
She's a filmmaker behind a feature documentary actually called Bison Nation: Walking Sacred Sites.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to our festival.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, you're more than welcome. Always the same question to begin with. Just a brief synopsis of what the film is actually about.
The film is about our last wild bison, which are called Bison here in Germany in the northern hemisphere, because they've always been tied to us humans. Without them, we wouldn't be here. Our ancestors depended on them for food, clothing, shelter, and everything. Also here in Europe, not just with the native people in North America, but also here in Europe.
You said something really interesting before the interview started, and I said I would pick up on things you say,
Yeah.
which was when you see other documentaries, it wasn't that you didn't believe the truth in them, but you found them, was it a little bit patronising, or you didn't like the way. So what is it that you set out to do that you, for instance, wanted to do with this film? What was the mission?
The mission is to help reconnect humans back to the natural world in a heart-based way, because we're so disconnected. We are afraid of everything, and we're so binary too. It's either cattle or bison, wolves or dogs. We don't seem to be able to wrap our heads and hearts around the concept that we all belong here on this earth and have a role to play in the ecosystem.
And this view that you have, I mean, obviously you reflected in the way you made this film.
Yes.
I know it's reflected in that, but this worldview that you have, is that something that you felt for a long time? Has it evolved over a period of time? Thank you
so very much for asking this. Yes, I've always been this way as a child, but it didn't go over very well where I grew up.
Right, okay, in Germany.
Yes, in Germany.
Well, I wonder if it would now though, because things have...
I think now it is.
Yeah, things have changed.
This is different, yeah. Now it's making an impact. Back then it wasn't so desirable to have this coexistence worldview and to be connected to the natural world, to actually have a connection. So when I immigrated to the US 30 years ago this year in November.
You must have been about 5 then, I reckon.
2.5. Yeah. I was old enough to immigrate, and I became the adopted daughter of one of the medicine women of one of the tribes in New Mexico. And all of a sudden, the way my cosmology works was acceptable. And all of a sudden it was...
Because it's quite an unbelievable story that you would up sticks, I assume on your own, I don't know, go and live in a completely foreign country, although it's obviously it's Western country. Yeah. But that's a big step. I mean, that was a nervy step. But why did you choose... you've just explained that you were taken on, but even so, it's a big ask, isn't it? I couldn't have done it.
I wanted to live where there was wilderness and wild animals, and it was a choiceless choice, really. I was telling my parents from the get-go that I was going to go and live where there were wild animals. So it's something in me that wanted to express itself forever.
And the dream that you had of this lifestyle, and this not idyllic lifestyle, this lifestyle, did it turn out to be everything you hoped, or was it? How did the reality? How was that reflected in what you imagined it to be?
I was quite flexible. I was just following some kind of inner knowing, and it and was going with some kind of flow in my life. And right now I can only say I could have never imagined the life I'm living.
Because you seem very happy, very content.
Happy. Yes.
So I'm guessing going back to live in a city is never going to happen with you.
Well, if I need to, if it's important for me to be in a city and to be a voice for the voiceless animals and to bring my work across, I will do it. Yeah, because I love people just as much. Okay. But I will always have to go out into the wild for a while and reconnect. Yes.
And you said that you've been a filmmaker for around 10 years, is that correct?
Yes.
So this isn't your first film?
It's my second.
Your second?
Yeah.
What was your career before this, and how did it lead into... and was filmmaking the ultimate goal?
The ultimate goal was to get the word across, and we are so visual these days. So before that, I studied communicative disorders, and I was a speech and language therapist in the public schools. And again,
hence the reason you're talking about public speaking. It's all quite natural to do it now, I guess. Okay.
Yeah. So also, like communicative disorders. We are really challenged in that with our relationship with the wild and the wild animals. We don't communicate anymore. It's something outside of us so that we're afraid of, something we are using, like nature is something that makes us feel better, but we never think about how nature feels. So there's really a disorder in our way of relating to nature. And so it really helped me a lot then to step fully into my role as a bridge maker or a voice for the voiceless animals.
And I mean, I'm going to worry, I know we touched very quickly on the environment, but I personally believe that we either are at or close to the tipping point in terms of the environment and ecology.
Yeah.
Is it too late, in your opinion?
No, I don't think it's ever too late, because life always wants to keep on living, and it's all about us anyways, because nature will always pick up and keep going. To give you an
It will find a way,
Yes, to give you an example, in Montana right now the climate is changing heavily, and I spend probably half of the year in Montana, because that's where we still have the big 5 animals and all the other animals like moose and
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it's wonderful, like wolverine, mountain lion, wolf, grizzly bear, and lynx. Only in Montana right
Well, they're
now.
only found in Montana?
Yeah, because we annihilated them in the rest of the lower 48s, and they also exist in Alaska. So that's why I went there. They started hunting the wolves again that were formerly protected. And it wasn't even like a scientific situation where we were inundated with wolves, which would never happen anyways. It was more like, well, if you re-elect me, I will give you the wolves to hunt, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's why I went up there to do public outreach. And right now, and film work. And right now we had 3.5 months without any rain.
Yeah,
and
it's
30
incredible.
forest fires. But the good thing is, all the old vegetation needed to go because the climate is changing, and the vegetation we have right now is not conducive to the dryness in the summer. So we need new vegetation, and only by burning and accessing the seeds that are in the earth already from different former climates that we had on this earth can we keep going. And nature is amazing. She never stops. She always creates. She never says, I don't have enough funding for this, or I don't have
Finds
enough.
a way.
Yeah, exactly. Or like we say, oh, we can't do this, we don't have enough funds. But nature just is always exuberant and always gives us her best. And so she will always find a way to keep going. It's just about us. Will we?
And what would you say to someone? See, I knew we'd go off track here. This always happens. What would you say to someone that passionately believed that climate change was a myth? What would you say to them to try and persuade them that actually it's real?
Well, I think people will get a feel for that sooner or later.
I believe in it.
Yeah,
I do believe in it.
I don't feel like, I feel it's a form of violence to try to convince anybody of anything. You know, it never works. There's a reason, and usually it's why people don't believe something or believe something. And it's usually based on fear, and you cannot convince anybody. But sooner or later, it'll be in all of our faces. Right now, it's already starting.
No, I can see it coming towards us.
Yeah, exactly. And just recently, for my new film about water, I was on the U.S. Virgin Islands last winter. And St. Croix, the island I was on, got totally destroyed.
That's right, got
yeah.
absolutely decimated.
And I have friends in Houston, Texas, and that was waiting to happen as well, you know, the hurricane there. They had another one 9 years ago. And so you can't say, oh, that's the flood of a century, that's the hurricane of 500 years. No.
Because it's happening more and more, isn't it? Yeah.
And so it's more and more in our faces, and we can't say it doesn't exist, that the climate is changing. And so I think sooner or later everybody's beach house will be flooded, or, you know,
it's
we'll
rising.
all be, you know, we have to get out of our denial. But I feel like it's better to inform people before, maybe through my film work and through my life's work, so that maybe we can make different choices and we can decide to be a part of it again instead of fighting everything that's inevitable anyways.
And with Bison, can you give me an idea of, I mean, I know you can't just go and shoot a film and take days. You need, it's the research I'm quite interested in. So you had a grand plan to make this film. We know the reason why.
Ever since I was a child,
But what kind of research was required, and how long did all this take to put together? Because I guess it took a long time.
Yeah, it took me 4 years altogether. And I actually migrated with the last wild bison on the reservations in the US to really get a feel for it. Because here's the thing, we really revere our domesticated animals, but they don't have the skills anymore. We bred it out of them to deal with changing climate, to find water, and plus they are behind fences. So they can't even find water if they want to, if they're able to. So, like a bison, for example, when there's a storm, and climate change doesn't always mean climate warming. We've had really hot summers in Montana, but we also had flooding, or
way too much water,
or very severe blizzards in September. We lost 60,000 cattle in South Dakota 2 years ago in a storm, 3 years ago. And
what, like a blizzard snowstorm?
Yeah, a blizzard in September.
Oh my
so
word.
It's not just like it's getting warmer, but it's more severe, whatever it is.
Yeah, the extremes, I guess, isn't it?
The extremes, yeah. So the cattle all died because they run from the storm, get drifted into a fence, and then die there, perish there, or get blown over the fence. And so a bison, when a bison can migrate, will always hunker down, sit down, face the storm, and survive everything. Then get up, shake itself, him or herself, and then keep going. So if we must eat meat, and we must have an animal that we control for food sources, it would be much better to have the bison.
Because they're so tough, aren't they?
Yes. But they have much better meat too, and they know what they're doing. And so I was very, 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 ever since I was a child, I was very interested in wild animals because they navigate life a lot differently than we do, and they don't know fences, and hence their lives are so different, yet we're so afraid of them, and we prefer the domesticated ones over the wild ones at any time. So I really dealt with all that. I spent lots of time with the native people, and 16 tribes now signed a treaty for the return of the bison because they're also spiritually tied to the bison. And I don't know if you know, but on the reservations we have 80 to 90% unemployment.
No, I knew it was very hard.
And they're in the middle of nowhere. So the return of the bison could really not only bring a spiritual renaissance to the people, but
financial,
also financial, physical, on all levels, because they're so tied to each other. Because we put the native people on reservations, and we put the bison behind bars or killed most of them. We only had a few left out of millions. There was a whole holocaust of the bison.
But they are gradually returning now.
Out of a few, same here in Europe. We only had 50 some left in zoos and parks, and now we have about 4,000.
Wow. And that's in...
That's in Poland, the Ukraine. We have, I think we have 7 wild bison in Germany, even on the land of a prince, because it's always that they migrate, they have to migrate. And so if they go across the border into somebody else's territory,
they're going to get shot.
They get shot, yes. So that's the problem.
And so what kind of numbers are we talking about in Montana?
We're talking about 4,000 in Montana.
Sorry, you said, but they were close to extinction.
They only had like 23 left or so, in Yellowstone National Park. Yes, they killed all the animals, and especially when the trains came, then they killed them from the trains because they wanted to get rid of the bison so they could control the native people. Because they said as long as there's bison, the native people will go there and we can't control them. But as soon as their food source is gone, we have them under control.
Of course, yeah. And was there anything particularly upsetting when you made this film? Was there anything you came across that you weren't expecting, or did it go pretty much as you planned?
I'm pretty, like I said, I have an open mind and heart when I start. I don't want to be set in my ways, because that way more can come in that needs to be said. And it was pretty tough. I always call it, I call my work breathtaking and heartbreaking, because I see this immense beauty and interconnectedness and how everything works so well together. And then when we interfere, how heartbreaking it is.
It's humans, always humans.
Yes, and I think one of the worst scenarios was when an older gentleman, an elder of the Crow Nation, wanted me to interview him and wanted me to hear his story. And I thought, why would he tell that to me, a person of such power and status? You know, why would he want me to hear his story? And then he told me that all his family members were dead. His last grandson had just died in a car accident. There's a lot of alcoholism, and there's a lot of desperation.
Because they're not working and they've got no. Yeah, it must be terrible.
Yes, so that was very terrible. And then when I interviewed him, I felt like how nervous he was, and I thought, he's so powerful. Why would he be nervous being interviewed by me? And I realized that he had been a product of the boarding schools. They, at some point, they didn't want to kill, the settlers didn't want to kill all the native people. They wanted to make them into servants. So their thing was kill the Indian, not the person, not the man. So kill the native part of this person so that we can make a little servant out of them. And they stuck them all in boarding schools. Which is another story to be told.
Is that something that you're looking at?
Yeah, but it's also already been told by Native people now. It's really coming out. Yeah, they should be really telling it. Although there's one part that I would like to tell in the future, and that is, you know, they put Native people in asylums for the insane Indians because they were Native. They thought differently. They acted differently. And the same happened in our country, in Germany, especially during the Third Reich.
Yes, I know this.
People who were different.
Yeah, I know.
Gypsies, anybody.
Yeah,
you know.
gay and.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got some experience. I've seen documentaries about this.
That's a story that I would like to tell next. Actually.
Yeah, there was something about it on the BBC recently. And it was really sad and terrifying to watch. Yes,
terrifying. So the same people, you know, went to the United States and did the same that was done here, you know. That was the same mentality. And that was heartbreaking when I then really touched on the fate of the Native people. It was really tough. But here's the thing, I don't know if anybody has heard here about Standing Rock, where the Lakota Sioux in North Dakota didn't want the pipeline to go through their water sources.
Yeah, but they won, and now they've lost again because Trump's come in, and then hasn't he reversed and win, I believe, or?
Yes, but the people have won anyways, because for the first time they were able to stand up for any length of time for their rights, and people were not used to that, and so. So I came across that too. I was at Standing Rock. I spent some time there, and I showed Bison Nation there.
Right, oh, brilliant.
Yeah, because the bison actually came. There was a whole herd. They came out of nowhere right to the camp and supported the people. And there were eagles coming. There were all kinds of animals coming, kind of like, we're with you. It was an act of solidarity. The bison were there to show their solidarity. There's no other way around it. And the whole thing was done in prayer and ceremony. Whatever violence there was by people that were Caucasian and they didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
But it was the most sacred time of my life ever, because I fell asleep with prayer and ceremony, and I woke up with prayer and ceremony, because that's how it was supposed to be. And they were saying, don't hurt our brothers and sisters, the army and the police people, because they're also our brothers and sisters.
Fantastic.
This is just about standing up in prayer and peace. And so that gives me hope. I think the Native people are coming back from the ashes, and it's very beautiful for me to have been a witness to that.
A lovely way to put it. Thank you.